You are lying awake about 18,000 years ago near the edge of a cold valley. The fire is low. Smoke crawls under the hide roof. Outside the shelter, wind pushes dust through the grass and bone frames above your head. Someone is coughing. Someone else is chewing dried meat in the dark, slowly, because everyone is hungry and nobody wants to admit the food is almost gone. And then your jaw begins to pulse. Not a small pain, not the annoying kind where you say, I should really book a dentist appointment, and then ignore it for 3 weeks. This is deeper. It feels like a tiny, angry animal has crawled into your face and started digging. You touch your cheek. It is swollen. Your tooth hurts when air touches it. It hurts when your tongue touches it. It hurts even when nothing touches it, which is rude, because at least pain should have the manners to explain itself. There is no dentist, no antibiotics, no x-ray, no pharmacy, no bathroom mirror, no chair that leans back while someone says, you may feel a little pressure, which is the modern dental way of saying, good luck. You have a stone tool, a few people who care about you, some smoke, some plants, memory, and the terrifying possibility that this little tooth could kill you. So how did ancient humans survive this? By the end of this, a toothache will stop feeling like a small medical problem and start looking like one of the oldest survival battles in human history. Because for ancient people, a bad tooth was not just a bad tooth. It could change how you ate, how you slept, how you hunted, how useful you were to the group, and in the worst cases, whether infection stayed in your mouth or spread into the bone, the face, and the rest of the body. And the strange part is this: ancient humans were not helpless. They did not understand bacteria the way we do. They did not have dental schools or tiny metal tools. But they had eyes. They had hands. They had memory. They had other people. And sometimes they had enough courage to put a sharp stone near a screaming tooth and try something. That is where the story gets uncomfortable. First, we have to destroy one modern myth, the idea that prehistoric teeth were perfect until humans invented candy. Many hunter-gatherers probably had less tooth decay than later farming populations. A diet with less processed starch and sugar often meant fewer cavities, but fewer does not mean none. Ancient mouths were working tools. Teeth were not just for eating. They were clamps, knives, grips, scrapers, and emergency third hands. Imagine opening packages with your teeth, except the package is animal hide, sinew, frozen meat, plant fiber, and maybe a strip of raw leather that smells like regret. Every day, teeth were being worn down. Sand and grit got into food. Dried meat could be tough. Nuts and seeds could crack enamel. A hard bite on bone or a small stone hidden in food could chip a tooth. Once a tooth cracked, a tiny opening could become a doorway. And behind that doorway was the soft inner part of the tooth, full of nerves and blood vessels. Modern dentists call it the pulp. Ancient humans called it, why is my skull doing this? If decay or damage reached that inner chamber, the pain could become brutal. Then bacteria could move deeper, and the body would fight back with swelling, heat, pressure, and pus. A dental abscess is basically the body building a tiny battlefield under your gum or inside your jaw. And when that battlefield has nowhere to drain, the pressure can feel impossible. Now, remember the setting. You still need to eat. You still need to walk. You still need to keep up when the group moves. A swollen jaw does not care that winter is coming. A tooth infection does not pause because wolves are nearby. Pain does not become polite because your child is hungry. And humans, physically speaking, were not exactly nature's premium combat model. No claws, no armor, no built-in venom, no thick fur coat. Our bite is embarrassing compared with a hyena. Our night vision is the kind of feature a leopard would return for a refund. We are soft, slow, strangely naked apes with opinions. So if a tooth infection hit hard, the first survival tool was not a tool at all. It was the group. A lone person with a bad tooth is in trouble. A person inside a group has a chance. Someone else can choose softer pieces of food, share marrow, cook roots longer, watch the fire while the sick person sleeps, or carry a child when pain makes every movement feel heavier. That sounds simple until you remember one problem. Food was not unlimited. Helping a sick person cost energy. If the group fed someone who could not hunt or gather well, that was a real investment. But humans are strange animals. We survived partly because we invested in each other before it was convenient. Care was not just kindness, it was survival math. Today you help me through a tooth infection. Tomorrow I remember where the water is during a drought, or how to make a better trap, or which valley fills with deer when the snow comes. The group was armor made of relationships. And pain also created information. People watched each other. If a swollen gum burst and the pain reduced, someone noticed. If chewing on one side helped, someone noticed. If warm smoke or certain plant fibers soothed the mouth a little, someone noticed. If a person with a rotten tooth stopped eating hard seeds and survived longer, that became memory. Memory was their medical record. Language was the search bar. The elder with missing teeth was not just old. He was a walking database of bad decisions, lucky recoveries, and things nobody should put in their mouth twice. But here is where it gets strange. One of the most important dental technologies was probably fire. Not because fire magically cured infected teeth. It did not. Fire was not an antibiotic with flames, but it changed the whole mouth problem. Cooking softens food. Meat becomes easier to chew. Roots and tubers become more digestible. Tough plant material becomes less punishing. For a person with dental pain, cooked food could be the difference between eating enough and slowly weakening. Fire also helped make broths and soft foods. A cracked bone in hot water could release fat and nutrients. A sick person who could not bite well might still drink, suck, swallow, and stay alive. Think of fire as a prehistoric hospital kitchen, security light, heater, and mood lamp all in one. Very bad at paperwork, excellent at keeping people from freezing. And then came the hands. Imagine the infected tooth again. The person sits near the fire, holding their face. Two others lean close, making the universal expression humans have used for thousands of years when looking inside someone's mouth. Concerned, disgusted, and a little too curious. They see a dark hole. They see swollen gum. Maybe they see food trapped in a crack. Maybe the person points, groans, and makes it very clear that if anyone touches the wrong tooth, there will be violence. What do they do next? The easiest intervention is not heroic surgery. It is cleaning, picking, scraping, removing bits of trapped food, using a sliver of wood, bone, grass stem, feather shaft, or tiny stone flake like a toothpick. This sounds almost too simple, but simple does not mean stupid. If trapped food makes pain worse, removing it helps. If pressure builds, any small drainage can reduce suffering. If a sharp edge cuts the tongue, smoothing or avoiding it matters. Ancient people were not waiting for perfect medical theory. They were testing cause and effect with their own faces. And yes, that means prehistoric life included the world's worst dental appointment. Your cousin with a stone flake saying, "Hold still," while everyone else watches like it is evening entertainment. Here is a thing that actually happened. Archaeologists studying a late Upper Paleolithic man from northern Italy found evidence that a decayed molar had been deliberately manipulated around 14,000 years ago. The marks suggest someone used a small stone tool to scrape or clean out decayed tissue from the cavity. This was not modern dentistry. There was no drill humming politely, but it looks like a real attempt to treat a painful tooth. Pause on that image. A person in the Ice Age has a cavity. Someone else, or possibly the person himself, uses a sharp stone tool on the tooth. No anesthesia, no sterile gloves, just pain, trust, and the hope that removing the bad stuff might help. And then, thousands of years later, in Mehrgarh, in what is now Pakistan, archaeologists found Neolithic molars with drilled holes. These were not random scratches. Some researchers argue that flint drill tips, perhaps powered by bow drill technology already used for bead making, were used on teeth. In other words, a technique for making holes in hard materials may have crossed over into the human mouth. That is both brilliant and horrifying. Because at some point, someone looked at a tool used to drill stone or shell and thought, you know what else is hard and has a hole problem? Dave's molar. Dave, obviously, may not have been excited, but this is how human technology often works. A tool invented for one job becomes useful for another. A scraper for hides becomes useful for bone. A point for hunting becomes useful for cutting. A drill for beads becomes, in very careful hands, a dental tool. And there is more. A Neolithic jaw from Slovenia, about 6,500 years old, has been reported with beeswax placed on a cracked canine tooth. Researchers have suggested it may have been used as a kind of filling, perhaps to reduce sensitivity or protect the damaged tooth. We do not know the exact story, but the possibility is fascinating. A sticky, natural material used to cover a damaged tooth. This is the part most people forget. Ancient humans did not need to know the word infection to know that some mouth problems got worse, smelled bad, swelled up, burst, improved, or killed. They could observe patterns. They may have learned that some teeth could be left alone, some had to be cleaned, some became loose, some fell out and the person survived. Some caused swelling that spread into the face, and some were so bad that the only real solution was removal. Tooth extraction sounds obvious until you imagine doing it without modern equipment. A tooth is not sitting politely in the mouth like a pebble in a bowl. It is anchored into bone by roots and tissues. Pulling it can break the tooth, tear the gum, damage the jaw, or leave infected material behind. So extraction was risky. Sometimes a diseased tooth loosened and came out. Sometimes people may have helped it along. Sometimes they left it alone because everyone understood that touching it was a terrible idea. This is where trial and error becomes darker. Prehistoric medicine was not a clean line of progress. It was bodies. It was memory built from suffering. Someone tries a plant and feels better. Someone tries another plant and vomits into the bushes while the group silently updates the database. Someone cuts too deep. Someone survives because pus drains. Someone dies because swelling reaches places the group cannot understand. Still, ancient humans had more than courage. They had landscape knowledge. Different groups knew different plants, resins, fibers, and minerals. Some plants can numb slightly. Some are anti-inflammatory. Some are antiseptic in limited ways. Some are simply distracting because they taste so strong your mouth forgets which disaster it was focusing on. We must be cautious. We cannot say exactly which plant every Paleolithic group used for tooth pain, but ethnographic records from many traditional societies show chewing sticks, plant resins, smoke, herbal rinses, and tooth cleaning behaviors. Human beings everywhere seem to notice that mouths need maintenance. Tracking was not only footprints in mud, it was reading clues everywhere. A swollen cheek, a rotten smell, a tooth worn flat, a child refusing hard food, an elder choosing soft marrow. These were tracks written on the body, and language made those tracks portable. A person could say, in whatever words or gestures their group used, "Do not chew that side. Use this soft root. The old woman had that swelling and it burst. The man by the river died when his face became hot. This plant helped. That plant made it worse. Hold his head. Wait until morning. Do not use the big rock, you absolute mammoth brain." That last sentence may not be archaeologically confirmed, but the emotion is probably eternal. Teaching children mattered too. A child could learn not to crack every nut with the teeth. They could learn to use stones as nutcrackers, tools as cutters, fire as a softener. They could learn that teeth are precious, because in a world without blenders, losing teeth could change your future. But here is the surprising twist. The biggest dental danger may have grown as humans became more successful. When humans learned to harvest and store more starchy foods, when some groups settled down, and later when farming spread, the mouth changed. More sticky carbohydrates meant more food for mouth bacteria that produce acids. Cavities became more common in many populations. Success created softness, storage, surplus, and then new disease patterns. That is the dark turn. Humans did not simply defeat tooth problems. In some ways, human culture created new ones. The same intelligence that made life safer also made teeth more vulnerable. Cooking softened food and helped people survive. Storage protected people from hunger, but could increase reliance on cavity-friendly foods. Settlements allowed larger communities, but also changed diets and disease environments. The clever ape kept solving problems and accidentally inventing new problems with better packaging. Very human. And yet, this is also where ancient people become more impressive, not less. Because dental pain is not just pain. It attacks the mind. It ruins sleep. It makes people irritable. It makes chewing dangerous. It makes every conversation feel like an insult. So surviving a tooth infection was never just about the tooth. It was about social tolerance. Would the group still feed you? Would someone help clean the wound? Would people let you rest? Would they risk touching the infected area? Would they remember what worked last time? This is why care is one of the most underrated survival technologies. A spear keeps danger at a distance, fire keeps the cold away, but care keeps knowledge alive inside people who would otherwise be lost. An elder with bad teeth might still know migration routes. A skilled toolmaker with a swollen jaw might still teach a child how to strike flint. A mother with dental pain might still carry social knowledge, food knowledge, plant knowledge. Keeping people alive protected the group's memory. In that sense, a prehistoric tooth infection was not just a medical emergency. It was a test of whether the group was truly human, and sometimes the answer was yes. Picture the scene again. The fire is brighter now. The person with the swollen cheek sits near the warmest place. Someone has softened food in water. Someone else brings a thin sliver of wood. Another person holds a stone tool, not because they are a dentist, but because they are the closest thing available, which is not comforting, but is technically better than a bear. The patient opens their mouth. Everyone leans in. Someone makes a face. Someone whispers advice. Someone else is absolutely not helping but wants to watch. They clean. They rinse with water if they have it. They avoid hard food. Maybe the swelling drains. Maybe the tooth loosens. Maybe the person survives. Maybe they carry that lesson for years. And if the person does survive, the story becomes knowledge. The next time a child cries with a swollen gum, the group is not starting from zero. The next time a hunter cracks a molar, someone remembers soft food, scraping, pulling, waiting, warming, cleaning, plant fibers, resin, beeswax, or whatever combination seemed to help. Not all of it worked. Some of it was probably useless. Some of it may have been dangerous. But the point is not perfection. The point is that humans kept trying, and they kept remembering. So how did ancient humans survive a tooth infection? Sometimes they did not. That is the honest answer. A severe infection could spread. Pain could weaken a person. Bad teeth could make eating harder. In the worst cases, a tooth could become a path toward death. But many did survive because survival came in layers. They survived by eating softer foods when pain made chewing impossible. They survived because fire changed food from a weapon into something the mouth could handle. They survived because groups shared food, guarded the sick, and carried knowledge. They survived by cleaning teeth, picking out trapped food, scraping decay when desperate, using plants and resins when they seemed to help, and sometimes removing or losing the tooth itself. They survived because tools made the hand more precise. They survived because language turned one person's suffering into another person's warning. They were not stronger than the infection. They were not smarter in a modern medical way. They were something stranger, patient, observant, social, stubborn, and willing to learn from pain. But it also showed the best of being human. Someone sitting beside you in the firelight, holding a tool, sharing food, remembering what happened last time, and trying to keep you alive even when your own tooth has become the enemy. So the next time your tooth hurts and you complain while driving to a dentist in a heated car, remember this. One of your ancestors may have faced the same pain in the dark, with wolves outside, no appointment, no numbing gel, and a friend holding a sharp rock saying, "Trust me." And somehow, humanity still made it to floss.